Hi, this is Tom Soane and welcome to another episode of the Anonymous Landlord. And today I'm going to show you how you can increase the value of your rental property and increase the profit your property generates without losing money. I know that sounds too good to be true, but trust me, this is a definite formula that you can follow and a definite strategy that once you know it, you'll then follow it from now on. And it is a way that you can increase and optimize the profits without increasing your risk. But also I'm going to show you how much money you need to spend on your property, things not to do, and how much not to spend, because there is a calculation for that. And it is a very easy calculation once you know it. So first of all, what is adding value? Well, adding value to a property is doing anything that increases the value. So any improvements, additions, alterations that might increase the value of the property overall, that is adding value. But you can also add value to the profit of the property by doing those same things that are going to increase your profit. I like to do both. Whenever I'm doing any kind of value adding activities, then I like to make sure I'm increasing the value of the property and increasing the value of the rent. And if you can follow that same strategy too, then you'll make more money from property. So let's start with the basics. What sorts of things could you do in order to add value? Now, obviously, there's loads of different ways you can add value to a property. So I'm not going to go through all of them right now, because this would be a very long podcast if I did. But let's go through a few examples. Now, you could start with what I call cosmetic decoration. I don't mean just put a lick of paint here and there. What I mean is decoration throughout the property that adds value or increases the value. So let's start with flooring. Now, a lot of people like soft carpets in certain rooms of a property, and other people like laminate style flooring in other rooms of a property. So when I'm doing my properties and when I'm improving or refurbishing properties, I try and make sure I get a good balance of both. Now, what I do is have soft flooring in the lounge and in the bedrooms, and then I have laminate style flooring in the hallway, dining room, kitchen and landing, upstairs landing if you've got one. So that works for me, and I feel like that attracts the best of both. It gives people that nice soft carpet, and it also gives people the robust, easy to maintain laminate style flooring in other areas. And that's the key. So for you as a property investor, laminate style flooring can be quite robust and it can be easier to clean. When one tenant moves out, it's easier to bring it back up to a decent standard. Whereas a carpet, the wear and tear can happen over a faster period of time. Not always. I'm not saying it always happens like that. I'm just saying that generally you're increasing your chances by having a good mixture of the both, of not only appealing to more tenants, but also by reducing your cost of replacing in the future. So the walls, similar type of philosophy, if you like. Some people prefer wallpaper, some people prefer smooth plastered walls. Now, what I try and do is plaster throughout because it looks better, but sometimes that's not cost efficient. Sometimes you've got decent wallpaper up on a wall that you can paint over and it looks good. So first of all, I would always do the walls, I would always do the floors. That will improve and increase the value of your property. Also the kitchen and bathroom. Right, so those are basic ones, right? Of course, you're going to do flooring and walls. If they need doing, you're going to do them. And I will come back to how much to spend in a minute, because that is vitally important. And there is a definite calculation for that. But now the kitchen and bathroom. I want you to stand in that kitchen, because you might not need to replace that kitchen. And this is a common mistake I see from a lot of property investors. The first thing people do is think, right, go in and replace the kitchen, spend $5,000 or whatever it may be, replacing a kitchen. Well, you might not need to replace the kitchen if it doesn't need replacing. But how do you work out if it needs replacing? So go and stand in that kitchen, have a look at the layout and think to yourself, can I improve the layout of this kitchen? Now, improving the layout is increasing worktop space, increasing space overall, increasing storage if there's not a lot of storage. Now, bear in mind, I'm not talking about really run down, destroyed kitchens that obviously need replacing. I'm just talking about perhaps dated kitchens that don't look so nice. You might not need to replace them. So once you've stood in that kitchen, and be honest with yourself, if you feel like, oh, I don't think I can improve the layout of this kitchen, then it might be worth considering just replacing the kitchen cupboard doors, replacing the sink, and giving it a whole new fresh lease of life. Because actually you might find the carcass of your kitchen is all right. And actually once you stick some really nice, I don't know, some composite color, some composite gray type color, sorry, it's not called composite, is it? Anyway, that grey sort of colour kitchen that's all popular at the moment, or a nice white kitchen, glossy white kitchen doors throughout, you might really improve that kitchen without replacing it. So have a look for that. If you can't improve the layout of the kitchen, you might be able to use the existing carcass and replace the doors. You might need to give it a lick of paint here and there. You might need to do some sort of minor maintenance or repairs, but generally speaking, you could do that. Then there's the same in the bathroom. Now, you might not always need to replace the bathroom or rearrange the bathroom. If it's got a bath, sink and toilet in it already, then you might not need to replace or readjust the layout. You might just be able to replace the sink, or you might be able to keep the bath and replace the toilet and sink, or you might be able to keep the toilet and sink and replace the bath. One way or another, it might not always need full replacement. So remember that. Even if you're refurbishing the entire property, you might not need to do a full replacement of those things. It might actually be, sometimes I think people just naturally think they have to replace those things just because they should. They're refurbishing it, so they have to replace it. But anyway, kitchen, bathroom. Now, slightly bigger stuff that you can do is add a bedroom. Of course you can add a bedroom. Now, there's a few ways that you can do that. Of course, you could build up into the loft or whatever. You can move a bathroom downstairs. You can build an extension at the back of the kitchen and move the bathroom into that to increase a bedroom. Or you could take a massive bedroom. If you've got a massive bedroom in your property, you could turn it into two. And that would be a really good way of adding a bedroom. Now, if you add a bedroom, of course, you increase the value of the property. And I will come back to how much to spend in a minute, because all this so far is sounding expensive, right? You might want to consider an open plan arrangement. So that might be a lounge diner, or it might be a kitchen diner. Personally, I prefer kitchen diner. Other people prefer lounge diner. That's each to their own. But I do believe that the most appealing type of open plan is a big kitchen diner. So that's in my opinion and my experience. I think the most popular type of open plan property is one with a big kitchen diner. So you might consider that. Now, there are certain ways that you can do that at minimal cost. There are ways that you can do that for a bloody huge amount of money. So I will come back to that. You can add an extension to the back. I've already mentioned an extension, but there are a few things you can do with that. You might stick an extension on the back or on the side, which enables you to put a bathroom in there, adding a bedroom. I've already mentioned that. You might extend the kitchen to make a big kitchen diner that I've just mentioned there. Either way, you could add an extension and that will increase the value of the property. Now, you need to do all of that in line with current market values, and there might be a ceiling limit around your area. There's no good sticking 2 extra bedrooms upstairs if there's not really any demand for properties above the value that you're intending to increase by. Or if there's no demand for a property, if you've got a 200 grand property and you're about to spend 20 grand on extending and improving, but there's no properties anywhere in the area above 200,000, it might not be right to do that improvement. But anyway, you'll figure that out when you're doing your valuations. Have a listen to my podcast, actually, the 3 ways to value your property, and that'll show you a bit more info on that. So the obvious question is, how much do you spend on all of this? Well, first of all, there is a definite calculation for that. Now, remember, we're property investors, right? So we've got to make profit. And you can only remortgage or refinance up to 75% of the value of the property. So if you're going to increase the value of your property, remember you can only take back out up to 75% of the increased value. Now that's then your budget. Now there are some variations to this, but I'll give you an example. If you're going to increase the value by £10,000, don't spend any more than £7,500. Less if you can do it. But if you're a proper property investor, that's easy to say, then there is a different calculation as well. Now, yes, that same calculation works, but we haven't yet taken into account the rental profit that you're generating. So think of it over a 2-year period, for an example. Most property investments will have a 2-year fixed rate on the mortgage, for an example. That means after 2 years, you can refinance and get the increased value out. So if you think of it like that, in 2 years, how much rent profit are you going to make? How much increased rent profit are you going to make once you've increased the value of the rent as well? And how much money are you able to take out in that 2-year period by refinancing? That gives you another figure. Now, obviously, if you can break even within that 2-year period, then fantastic. From then on, your property will be more profitable and have more value. That's great. You might decide that you want to set the budget. If you're going to increase the value by 10,000, you might decide you want to set the budget at 5,000, so you're immediately in profit. That's a good strategy. But you get the idea. But think of it over 2 years. Try to improve the property maybe in a 2-year period and get all your money paid back. And that's how you don't lose money, because you can always get it back. But first of all, check the demand for that type of property. If you're going to add a bedroom or two, check that there is demand for it. Don't overdevelop, and definitely don't overvalue that property. Like I said, have a listen to my podcast, which is the 3 ways to value your property. And that will tell you whether you should do this addition or do this improvement or not. Now, if you are going to make an improvement to the property and there's a tenant already in there, definitely increase the rent. Without a doubt, because if you're going to improve that property and you're going to spend money on it, you've got to get that return on investment. We're property investors. We are entitled to make profit. We're being smart with our money, and we're not just greedy, money grabbing bastards. We're property investors, and we're investing our money in order to generate a return. Now, if other people criticize you for that, that's up to them. They're just jealous. But you should be able to make a profit, and you should be proud that you're making a profit. But don't scare off your tenants. If you've got a tenant in the property and you're going to make these improvements and increase the rent by 250 quid, the chances are you're probably going to scare off your tenant. And then, look, that might not be a bad thing, because if you're going to increase your rent significantly and your current tenant can't afford that, then it might be time to replace that tenant. Look, I'm really sorry if any tenants listen to this, but we as property investors have a responsibility to us and our families to make a return on our money. We're not here to give free money out. And if you're not charging the full rent that you should be able to charge, then you're actually giving money to your tenant. Now, would any of you just give 50 quid a month to your tenant? I doubt if you would. Well, that's what's happening if you're not increasing your rent in line with market values. Now, I hear a lot of tenants complain that that rents are too high. Well, that's not a landlord's fault. I'm sorry, but it's not the landlord's fault. The landlord is just setting it in line with market rent value. Now, there are some idiot landlords that extort tenants, but hey, Mr. and Mrs. Tenant, you don't have to move into that property. You could try and find another property. Now, in other cases, there might be more difficulty in doing that, and I sympathise, but at the moment, I'm trying to help property investors. Now, maybe I'll do another thing trying to help tenants, but for the time being, this is property investment advice. So anyway, just to recap, that is how you increase your profit and increase your value of your rental property without losing money. You calculate your budget for any improvements to be up to 75% of the increase in value that you will achieve. You can add into that, if you want, the profit that you're going to make from the rent over that same 2-year period. That's your budget. Don't go above it, because then you won't be generating much of a return and you'll be overspending, overdeveloping or whatever. You could do decor throughout, walls, flooring. Remember I said about the laminate and carpet mixture, walls as well, kitchen, bathroom. You might not need to replace them. Add a bedroom here and there if you can. Move a bathroom if you can to enable you to add a bedroom into that space. Look at open plan options. Now, if it's going to cost you 10 grand to remove a chimney stack, then, you know, it might not be worth it. It still might be. You might be able to stick an extension on there, side or back. But remember to stick to that calculation of 75% of the increased value. That's your budget. That's how I do it. And anytime I look at any properties, my budget is 75% of the increase in value as a maximum. If I can do it for a lot less than that, then of course that's what I want to do, because that's more profit. So I hope that helps. Let me know what you think, or let me, actually, do you know what? I'd really like it if we could interact a bit more. So I'd love it if you told me some examples of how you've added value to a property. Now, look, it might not be that we become best friends and, you know, go for wonderful walks in the park or anything. But, you know, if you tell me a way that you've added value, then I can share that with other people. Because look, we're all landlords, we're all property investors. It's not a secret. We're not doing anything secret here. If if you're a property investor in Manchester, for an example, and you just found a way to add value to a property, then let me know. I can share it and we can let other investors make a bit of profit too. That's what we should be doing. We should be sharing our knowledge. So don't forget to let me know of any property improvements you've made that have added value, any successes that you've had. Just tell me, and if you don't mind me sharing them, I won't mention any names or any details. I'll just share them as advice with other people. But in the meantime, don't forget to check out the 3 ways to value your property. But in the meantime, I've said that twice now, but for the time being, I really do want everybody to be the best version of themselves that they can be. So my name is Tom Soane. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. And I hope you'll join me in saying that this is the Anonymous Landlord.